Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this episode of Caught on the Mic with Michael Clark. I'm glad to have you here. It is no secret how big of a fan of MMA I am. I make no secrets about it. And as a result of this show, I have made a lot of friends in the MMA world, in particular, those friends with Elevation Fight Team and at High Altitude Martial Arts. It goes without fail that I will nudge at one of those friends and say, who's somebody that I haven't had on the show yet that you think would be a good fit for the show? Everybody, every single time says, have you had Vanilla on yet? Have you had Vanilla on yet? So today I am proud to share with all of you my guest, Vanilla Thunder, Ben Tynan. He's an MMA heavyweight. He fights for One Fighting Championship, and his next fight is June 7th, 2024 at One Fighting Championship 167. He's a lot of fun to talk to, and I cannot wait to run into him in the real world. Just a little editorial comment. While recording this episode, our remote recording software went down. Not our fault. It's internet. You know, it fails sometimes. So we had to switch over to a different platform. So the quality takes a little bit of a dip halfway through the episode, but you'll barely notice. It's still absolutely fantastic. So as always, listener and viewer, discretion is advised. I hope you enjoy this episode. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been doing this podcast for almost 4 years now. I work a lot with my friends on Elevation Fight Team and High Altitude Martial Arts, and it has gone without fail. Everybody has said to me, dude, have you had Vanilla on yet? And today, I have the one, the only, Vanilla Thunder, Ben Tynan. How the hell are you, man?
That's quite the introduction. I'm doing pretty good. Doing good.
Sweet, man. Sweet. So you're an MMA heavyweight. You've been fighting most recently with One Fighting Championship. Are you in a multiple fight contract with them?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. I got a 6-fight contract, so I'll be fighting a lot with one.
Awesome, man. So I kind of want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself, and let's kind of talk a little bit about your origin story, more in particularly how you went from Canada to North Dakota to Colorado. Let's talk about it, man.
Cool. Yeah. As for myself, I am Vanilla Thunder, the charming blonde here. I was born in Canada, lived there as a little kid, and then moved to actually Seattle when my mom remarried. And I lived in Seattle for quite some time. And then I went to school in North Dakota State because I wrestled for them. So I've kind of been all over the place. But yeah, been in Denver for 3 years now. So it's been pretty good.
So what brought you to Denver and what attracted you to training at High Altitude and with Elevation Fight Team?
Yeah, so it was just the fight team. I was training up in Seattle. And I was training there for a couple of years, but like there's no really like good heavyweights to train with up there. And like growing up wrestling, I know to be the best, you got to train with the best. So I was like, man, I don't have a wife or kids or nothing holding me down. I was like, let me just pick up shop and move somewhere, you know? So I was checking out some of the top gyms, and Elevation, of course, had like, great, big boys and just an overall team. So I figured I'd check them out. They seemed like a good fit. So I decided to bless them with my presence.
Dude, you almost went Ric Flair with that one. If you want to be the best, you got to train with the best.
Hey, Ric Flair, yeah, the man was right,
Oh, absolutely. He had blonde hair too, and he was a charming guy as well, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah, very handsome.
Dude, so what have you found training with that group of dudes? Because I kind of already know the answer in the back of my mind, But what have you found training with them that you hadn't experienced elsewhere? Because I noticed personally, there's a different sense of character with the elevation guys and the high altitude guys, or as you guys all affectionately refer to yourself, the Gorilla Gang.
Yeah. No, the Gorilla Gang. We're a really tight knit group. It's super rare to have as many like heavyweights, high level heavyweights in one room like we have. So it's kind of strange because we like been kind of, because we got so many big guys. More big guys have been kind of coming along, so it's kind of just like growing. So we got some up and comers who are still amateurs who have like great backgrounds, and then we have more like seasoned guys like Curtis or Zach on the team, and then you got some killers like me and Ty, and it's kind of cool. You get like a little bit of everything with it.
Yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, if you are not following Vanilla on Instagram, there is this fantastic picture. It was like, what, a year and a half ago, where the guys recreated the Dagestani spa photo. Dude, I don't know what makes me laugh more. Your walkout attire, you got to talk about that. Like the tuxedo t-shirt. How did you land on that, man?
I don't really know. I kind of always, I've always been a fan of cutoff t-shirts. That's kind of like, I wear a bunch of cutoff t-shirts. You got to show off the guns, you know? And, I felt like, I don't know. I felt like that'd be good. It's just weird how it all came together. Cause I've always wanted the jean shorts from my amateur days. I tried ordering some jean short, like shorts online, and I got this really cheap pair that came in that I found out was underwear, and it was like so skimpy and tiny, and I'm like, okay, I can't wear this. So I kind of had to wait for the right moment, and yeah, that came together. I don't know, it was just the tuxedo shirt kind of came, and me ripping it off. I was like, I don't know. I know where I came from. I just felt like, hey, I should rip my shirt.
And when you think about how kind of, I want to say, loose that organizations like UFC have gotten recently with a lot of people's fight attire, their walkout kits and such, it won't be long, man. I mean, I know you've got this 6-fight deal with one. Do you have aspirations to try other? Are you at liberty to say whether you've got aspirations to try other organizations?
It just depends where things go. I always pictured myself in the UFC, and that was kind of the goal. But kind of where things are going right now, one's a really, really cool company. And I'm not just saying that to kiss ass. Since I've been a part of it, it's been a crazy journey and experience. And I really like it. Like you said, I love how one's more lenient with, like letting people become more characters. You know what I mean? They let you be yourself. Whereas in the UFC, they're trying to make everyone the same and just have the brand out there. Like, oh, this is UFC. Whereas one, it's like, no, here's this crazy guy with blonde hair who likes wearing jorts and beating dudes up. And I'm like, dude, this is awesome. I feel like it's a lot better fit for me.
Did you, before you signed with one, did you watch their version of The Apprentice at all with the president and CEO of one? Me neither, but I've been highly curious about it. I'm like, shit, man, I might get on Amazon and just watch that back, because you're right. Like, one is gaining some serious momentum and has the past 3 years or so, and they're getting quite the reputation. And I've always had the opinion that competition is the best thing for the workplace. Like, Walgreens wouldn't survive without a CVS. Your Ace Hardware, your Home Depot, and Lowe's wouldn't survive without them competing with each other. So the same thing goes with like the UFC, One, Bellator, all of these organizations that are making power moves and doing great things. What are your long-term aspirations if you stay in place with one? Because I know there were some call-outs after your last victory.
Yeah. I don't know. I really, first of all, I really want to be the champ of one. That's kind of the go-to plan. Their belts are really badass. They're huge, golden, like shield looking things. And I was actually picking one up during the photo shoot for my last fight because they had it sitting on the side. I'm like, hey, how do I get some photos of this bad boy? It looks like a really good belt. I definitely want to run through the heavyweight division here. But like you said, the company's grown a lot, so it's kind of cool to see because as it picks up more traction, it's only going to get bigger. There's only going to be more fighters joining. It's kind of cool. I don't know. I feel like to be a part of one right now is like I feel like a historic moment because I feel like they're only going to get bigger. And so if I'm one of those like guys who are like entered during that transitional phase, I feel like I don't know. It'll be nice having my face up there. So
Yeah, it's always exciting being at the ground level of something, isn't it? It's crazy because it's a different type of excitement. Like I remember this is going to be the craziest comparison. Like about a year ago when Threads dropped, Instagram's Threads, their attempt at trying to do a Twitter. For about 2 weeks, the algorithm was absolutely insane, and you could interact with anybody and everybody. And and it was like, man, this is kind of exciting because I'm at the ground level of this to where everybody's accessible. Everything, every piece of information that's coming across is exciting to read, exciting to hear. So I imagine as one's building momentum, it's kind of the same feeling.
yeah, for sure. It's cool. Well, they're gaining ground here in the U.S., but you go over to Asia and they're huge. Like, not to sound like an asshole, but it felt really nice to get people to recognize me when I was just over in Thailand. Like, even afterwards, I went to the beaches of like Phuket, and like once a day, like random people come up and be like, "I saw you fight," no, wanting photos. I'm like, "Oh yes, yes, that was." Yeah. Oh, I will take a photo, but I have to get back to my life. It's I'm a very busy man.
Dude,
But
I absolutely love that, dude. Don't apologize for that. Like be the asshole, own the moment. That's champ shit, you know?
Yeah, you're right. You make a good point. That is champ shit.
If you're gonna be the champ, you gotta act like the champ. There it is. There's the Ric Flair reference again.
That's right. That's right. It keeps coming to Ric Flair.
You are the Ric Flair of one fighting championship. That's what is gonna happen. now you got to walk out with the tuxedo T-shirt and the big feather boa and the Rolex watch.
I've been working on that actually. You might be seeing the old Vanilla Thunder robe here soon.
I love that, man. So let's talk a little bit about your amateur record. You were undefeated as an amateur. You were 3-0 in LFA, 2-0 with one fighting championship. I have a lot of friends that fight, as you know, both on the amateur level and the professional level. You haven't experienced a loss yet. Has that crossed your mind? What that would do to you mentally in your mental space if that happens?
I've never lost, and I probably never will, to be honest, Mike.
Woo!
Look.
There it is.
Look at me. You think a guy like this loses in life? Nah. It's. I just accept it. It's what it is. I grew up wrestling, and of course, I've had plenty of losses in wrestling.
Right.
So I know how to deal with losses. I know how to deal with competition. But the one thing I learned from wrestling is I know how to not accept losing. Like it comes to a point where I feel like too many people like accept losing. Like they look at it like being, I don't know, like an emotional, like, I lost. This is so heartbreaking, And one thing I learned like through my life is like there's nothing pretty about being a loser. Like as much as people love watching like drama movies and they were so close and they lost, here's my sympathy, and in the long end there's nothing glorious about it. So you kind of got to push that part out of you and say if a loss comes, so be it, but the guy's got to earn it, the guy's got to take it. I'm not just going to like choke myself and be like, well, I've had a really hard time this last couple months and things feel a little off, so I'm just gonna like sit
I love that.
all sad like and just, oh well, he beat me. I don't feel right. It's like, no, you got to kill me to beat me. You know.
Yes, yes, I love that. Having that collegiate wrestling background, what's something that you've learned making that transition to MMA, whether it be style, your approach to the art, and what have you, since your time in Colorado?
I feel like the best thing I took from wrestling is just kind of mindset. I feel like that's the best thing to adapt for fighting, and it's not just dealing with losses like I was ranting about, but it's also like preparation and just like embracing the competition. You know, I know too many people who feel like they got to amp themselves up before a fight, or they get super nervous, or they don't know how to like deal with like, oh, I don't know what to do, I'm all nervous. And like that's the joys of wrestling, is I've dealt with that so many times, like from when I was a kid to a grown man, that like I know myself, I'm confident in myself, where I'm like, fuck it, you know, it's a fight, I'm ready to go out and compete.
Let's kind of talk a little bit about some of the other things that inspire you. Watched a recent interview where you were talking about your Charizard tattoo. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, if you are not aware, my friend has a giant Charizard tattoo on his bicep. Huge Pokemon fan. Check that out, everybody. Amazing. So, what are the pop culture things that kind of motivate you outside of the ring and kind of get you amped up? Because you talk about not getting overly amped up, but what does amp you up? What inspires you?
Yeah, it depends on the mood. Uh, so one thing I like doing before like my fight week is I like watching some like classic martial arts movies to kind of get me, you know, like you said, in the mood. So that of course involved like Van Damme films. That's kind of like my go-to. Before my first fight with one, I watched Bloodsport. And the whole time I was watching it, I was like, oh my goodness, this is me. I'm Van Damme. You know, I was traveling across the world. He was competing in the Kumite there. But, you know, I was competing for one. The main big villain was like this South Korean killer. And I was like, I'm fighting a South Korean killer. And I was like, oh my God, this is me. So it was kind of fun to watch and get me in the mood. This last fight, let's see, I watched like the original Mortal Kombat movie. I watched Kickboxer. That one's another classic. So, yeah, just Van Damme films. They never fail.
I love it, man. I love it. So, as a result of having this love for all things pop culture and fighting and getting all of this experience with one, what is a crazy social media follow that you've had that just unexpectedly happened out of the blue? Has that happened yet?
Unexpected social media. No, not really. I think the coolest thing was that Chatri like commented on my post. I was like, what? He commented on my post? This is awesome. So I felt like
Yes.
that was kind of cool after I whooped on Khan. Like he just like commented, was like, oh, great work. And I'm like, hey, all right, that's pretty cool. You know, boss man's watching.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's look forward, say 2 years. What are your hopes in the next 2 years? What do you hope to accomplish? Um, what are you going after? You mentioned the championship, but let's like think big picture in general. What are your long-term goals?
My long-term goals in the next 2 years. So first on that list, like you said, would be getting that belt. Next year I plan on I want to get a house. I think that'd be cool. Get some property, you know, act like a grown up. For goodness sakes, I'm 30 years old, you know, and I got roommates. I'm like, you know, I think it would be cool to get my own place. And yeah, I don't know from there. I want to get my dad's old Mustang actually. He has a 69 a Mach 1 Mustang fastback. And that was his pride and joy when he was alive. He passed back in 96, 95. So my uncle bought it off my mom, and then my uncle just sold it like a year ago to some like car collector. But I have the car collector's info, so
There
I
you go.
want to hit him up, and hopefully once I get a little more money, I'll take that off their hands and restore the family honor.
Love it. Love it. So, similar train of thought, similar train of question. Moving to Denver, walking in that room for the first time, who was somebody that you met that is now your teammate that you were completely awestruck by?
I sound like an asshole again. They're all really good in their certain ways. It just kind of depends. I don't know. Each guy I train with is very gifted in a certain area. You know what I mean? So it's kind of cool that we get to like build off each other from that. But awestruck, I guess if we want to say term, I definitely take the most hits from Blades. And there's times
Yeah.
where he's feeling himself, where I'm like thinking to myself, like, I'm in awe. I'm like, what the hell am I getting hit with? But I feel like there's also days where like he's having a bad day and he's tired and I'm able to get like an edge on him. And I'm like, yeah, what now? It's just it's a typical like just competitive environment in the practice room. You know what I mean? Like it's if there's a chance, we'll beat each other up and then just hang out afterwards.
I've seen you corner other guys. I think Curtis in particular. Do you have plans of doing that a little bit more in the next year on top of your own fights?
Yeah. Anytime my teammates want me in their corners or anything, I'm more than happy to, join them. It's kind of cool because I feel like the most important thing, like, because we have our main, Vinny's our main striking coach, Cody's our main grappling coach. But it's good to have like good teammates in your corner with a good energy because there's just something about just like going to war and having your boys by your side. So I feel like I'm just kind of one of those guys that they're like, hey, get in my corner. I want old Thunderlips backing me up. So
Oh man, I absolutely love that. Sweet, dude. I gotta tell you, man, I understand why everybody wanted you and I to have this conversation. I feel like we're cut from a similar cloth, and I love that.
do you do any training, any grappling?
No, I no. You know what's funny? I was a kid that moved all over growing up. So, martial arts for me was a way to socialize. So I would move every 2 to 4 years as a kid. Get involved with Taekwondo or whatever discipline was being trained in the town that I was living in. So I spent a lot of time in Mick dojos. Anybody that's affiliated with martial arts understands what a Mick dojo is. So, as far as knowing any discipline or actively training in any discipline right now, absolutely not. I just spend a lot of time in the gym. I'm a former musician that is the biggest MMA fan in the world. Yeah, man. I spent so much time in the music business. I've pretty much played opening for every single one of my favorite bands that I could have.
What?
Coming this close. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But it just never happened. And that was something that I was okay with making peace with. I was like, okay, I got to a point in my life where I was just like, man, this isn't going to happen for me. And I'm okay with it because I have stories that I can tell my kids that a lot of my contemporaries probably wouldn't have. So it kind of falls to the same exact question I asked you about taking that loss. Like, the first time you kind of suffer a loss and making peace with things and kind of being at that point in life. So I've used all of that and have leveraged it to a really cool podcast to where I get to sit down with cool guys such as yourself and some of my favorite musicians and have these great conversations. So that's my story in a short tangent.
What'd you play?
I was a singer. If probably not surprising, but yeah, I was a front man. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, man.
Dang, all right. And your band, you guys made some music and stuff? Could I check you guys?
Oh, should send you a link to the stuff that I did. But my very last show, and this was my Super Bowl moment, and I've mentioned this on the podcast several times. My very last show was opening for 3 Days Grace and Avenged Sevenfold. And it was just like, I was like, dude, it's not going to get any fucking bigger than this. And at the point I was at, I was 35 and my kids were kind of getting into elementary school. And I was like, this is my Jay-Z Black Album moment. I'm going to walk away while I'm on top and make peace with it. And that's what I did.
That's cool. Dang, that's really cool. Hey, well, I know maybe that was your Super Bowl moment. That's pretty historic, though, to be a part of that music scene.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Dude, I played all over the Midwest. I absolutely loved it, but there's a nasty, I'm sure it's the same way in fighting. There was a nasty underbelly where I saw grown men acting like a junior high school girls' locker room several times where I was like, man, I'm getting too Danny Glover style, I'm getting too old for this shit.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you get that in martial arts. It makes me miss wrestling because there's a lot less of that. I feel like in the sport of wrestling, it's a lot more just like blue collar, like just saying things as they are. If a coach or someone's pissed at you, they'll just tell you right to your face. When I started getting into MMA, yeah, if you go to like the wrong gyms or something or talk to the wrong people, you'll hear from the grapevine, oh, so and so's mad at you because you did this. And I'm like, how old are we? Come on, just tell it to my face.
right, exactly, dude. That's the exact type of person I am, and I think that's why I had to walk away from it because that's like even in my day job and what I don't talk about what I do for a living on the pod, but I'm the same way. I am overabundantly transparent to the point where I say I communicate to a fault. So if I'm pissed at somebody, they're going to know I'm pissed at them. You know, if I'm happy with somebody, they're going to know that I'm happy with them. I don't believe in this like hiding behind bullshit and gossip stuff, man.
It's the worst. It's the worst. Unfortunately, that's in MMA. That's a problem.
I think it's in any type of industry where the spotlight has to shine on you for any certain amount of time.
Yeah, I can see that. That makes sense. There's not a lot of that in wrestling. There's no spotlight in wrestling.
Right, right. You just go, you do your thing, you walk away, and then you do your thing again the next time, right?
Yeah, no one cares. The only people that were in the stands when I wrestled was my mom and my teammates' moms. Like, no one really cared that much. So that makes sense.
With all of this being said, because this is a perfect segue to this question, a lot of what I do with this podcast, I say that it's a Trojan horse. It doesn't matter if I'm having an MMA star or a famous musician or an actor or somebody along those lines on my show. I call my show the Trojan horse because it's all about the human experience. It's all about how we get into the thing that we're into and then how we walk away from it after it's all said and done. So my closing question that I ask every single guest is, what's your advice for making the world a better place tomorrow than what it is today?
I just say do what you love. I feel like way too much of life is people just like complaining or just doing stuff they hate. And it's like, dude, just follow your passions. And that sounds super cheesy. That sounds like, out of a fortune cookie, but that's kind of one thing I've done, with my life. Like after I graduated college, everyone's like, hey, all right, now get a job. And I was like, I kind of want to do MMA. And they're all like, well, why'd you go to college? And it was kind of like, well, I got a degree so I could be a teacher and I want to teach and coach. But like in my head, I'm like, I'll save that for later on in my life when I want to be more of a mentor. Right now, I want to chase this crazy dream of being a world champ cage fighter. So,
Yeah.
and people said I was crazy at first. And I feel like now I'm kind of, picking up some momentum where people are like, hey, okay, he might be onto something. So I feel like as long as everyone just kind of does like what makes them happy, I feel like everyone will just get along and be happier. So that's my thought.
I think that's kind of the common thing. It's when people will doubt you until you start finding success, and then everybody crawls out of the woodwork. Everybody. I believed in you all along. But that's our jobs. I mean, I think that's our jobs as creatives. I think that's our jobs as human beings. It's to prove people wrong 100% of the time. Prove anybody that's doubted you wrong, for sure.
Yeah.
Dude, I love this. I'm glad that I got to interact with Vanilla Thunder. Man, thank you so much for doing the podcast. I appreciate you, brother. I'm glad we know each other now. I'm going to have to make it a point to high five you next time I'm out in Colorado, because I try and make my way to the gym when I can.
Hey, hell yeah. I'm excited to see you, man.
All right, man. The world's a much better place within you in it. Thanks for doing the podcast, man.
Hey, thanks.